So, jury selection has started in the Carmelo Anthony case, and this is set to be one of the most controversial trials in American society. It's a very sad situation that's currently going on. You know, a young black kid, a young white kid run into each other at a, cross-school track meet, and words are exchanged, threats are made. Carmelo Anthony pulls a knife, stabs Austin Metcalf, and kills him. And now we're trying to get to the bottom of what went on. Now, he was actually granted bond in a very controversial move. So now the jury's being selected, and I'm just going to give you all of the updates on the trial. But this is a really divisive issue, and unfortunately, it does seem like this is going to be another one of those stories that's going to end up being argued, kind of along racial lines. White victim, a black suspect, very mysterious circumstances around what exactly happened. Carmelo Anthony is claiming self-defense. Other people are claiming that's not what happened. So I'm going to give you some updates on this. Jury selection has started, and there's now reporting going on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the latest update, and then I'm going to backtrack, and I'm going to show you kind of everything that led up to this trial.
Profile murder case out of North Texas is now underway. 19-year-old Carmelo Anthony is accused in the fatal stabbing of Austin Metcalf at a track meet last year. Metcalf and Anthony, who were both 17 at the time, were competing in a Frisco ISD track meet on April the 2nd of 2025. Investigators say that the confrontation started when Metcalf told Anthony, who was sitting under the wrong school's team tent, to leave. Anthony has claimed he acted in self-defense. Anthony was released from jail after his bond was reduced to $250,000 from $1 million. He was placed under house arrest at his parents' home. He faces up to life in prison if convicted. Metcalf's twin brother Hunter accepted a posthumous diploma for Austin shortly after accepting his own, followed by a standing ovation.
Hunter Metcalf will accept the posthumous diploma in honor of his brother, Austin Metcalf.
A touching moment for the family and community there. The Metcalf family remains under a gag order connected to the ongoing criminal case and has not spoken publicly about the graduation ceremony.
So there's a gag order in place. So the victim and the perpetrator and their families, they're not even allowed to talk about the case. I feel like I disagree with that. I feel like that is a violation of free speech. But I suppose the reasoning is that they don't want this to devolve in some kind of online race war. They don't want people tainting the jury. But it's pretty shocking. Imagine having your son stabbed to death at a track meet, and then they're telling you can't even talk about it publicly. It's actually a little bit crazy. But let's just rewind to April the 2nd of 2025 when this all went down. So Carmelo Anthony fatally stabbed Austin Metcalf during a dispute at the multi-school track meet in Frisco, Texas. As we're going to hear, apparently Anthony was at the wrong tent. He was asked to leave. He then, I believe, threatened Metcalf and said, don't touch me, you'll see what happens. And I believe Metcalf then got physical. It's unclear if it was a push or a shove or a punch, but that then led to Carmelo Anthony pulling a knife and allegedly stabbing Austin Metcalf to death in front of everybody. So it's a little bit insane, really, but here's just like a recap of what actually went down.
Tonight, 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony, who was charged with first-degree murder in the fatal stabbing of a teen at a track meet earlier this month, is out on bond. A judge today reducing the teen's $1 million bond to $250,000 at the request of the defense.
I feel it's fair. Bond, as the judge said, is not supposed to be an instrument of oppression. It's not supposed to keep people in jail. It's not supposed to punish.
Anthony's father testifying that his son does not have a passport and that he would be surrounded by friends and family who would keep him accountable ahead of the trial.
The judge has made her call, and we look forward to continuing the process and looking forward to reviewing all the facts of the case.
The lower bond comes amidst rising tensions in the community after the stabbing during a high school track meet on April 2nd that led to the death of Austin Metcalf.
End result, he stabbed my son in the heart and killed him. That's what it was over.
According to the arrest report, a witness told police Metcalf asked Anthony, who attends a different high school, to move to his own school's tent at the meet. Anthony then told Metcalf, "Touch me and see what happens," according to a witness. And later, Metcalf grabbed Anthony to tell him to move. Metcalf's father, Jeff Metcalf, telling our NBC station in Dallas, his son died in his twin brother's arms after he was stabbed.
I will never be the same.
Anthony telling a responding officer at the scene, "I was protecting myself before being questioned," according to the arrest report. Later saying in the police report, "I'm not alleged, I did it," in response to the officer referring to him as an alleged suspect. Since the stabbing, tensions over race have surfaced, leading to meetings between activists and officials. An online fund for Anthony raising more than $400,000 for his defense. The nonprofit civil rights group Next Generation Action Network demanding protection for Anthony's family after claims their home address was leaked online.
We have saw so many different hateful images. Just hateful things.
This weekend, Austin Metcalf, who family described as a scholar, leader, and star athlete, was laid to rest. Tonight, two families' lives change forever as this case moves forward.
It's really messed up, okay? Now, obviously, the fact that the victim's white and the perpetrator is black doesn't really help with the tensions in the community. And right from the start, Austin Metcalf's father would actually speak out publicly, and he would say himself that this case was not about race.
God teaches us in the Bible. He talks about forgiveness. He also talks about revenge. Not for me to seek. God will take care of it. Karma, I believe in it. It's very unfortunate that this other child decided to make a bad choice that's going to affect him for the rest of his life. I have compassion for every human being. This is not, I want to make this very clear. This is not a race issue. This is not a black and white issue. I don't want someone stepping up on a soapbox trying to politicize this. I don't appreciate some of the remarks I've seen online that people say there was this fight and they don't know, they weren't there. I know the truth. So unless you were there, unless you saw it, don't spread gossip.
Just to ask you this one question, like I had mentioned, the self-defense argument made by the suspect, what's your reaction to that if that's used in court or used?
Yeah, as a defense attorney, they're going to try every avenue. That's their job. The truth will come out. There were too many people that were there that saw what happened. My own son told me what happened. There was never a punch even thrown. So I don't care. There was never a phone broken. We've never had contact with this individual ever. So unless you were there, I don't appreciate all the gossip and all the mistruths that people are speaking at this moment.
Is that shocking to hear?
So he said no punch was thrown, and I'm not trying to put him down or anything like that. I want to hear this tried in court very fairly on both sides. But he said no punch was thrown, but obviously the initial statement that we heard on the news was that Carmelo Anthony was grabbed. Now, if he was grabbed and restrained against his will, now I don't know how the self-defense laws work, whether you can punch somebody, you can use force, whether if somebody grabs you and is restraining you, I don't know if you're allowed to just stab them to death. Maybe in Texas you can. So anyway, I do really want to hear this tried, and I do agree. I don't think race should be brought into this, but unfortunately, it will be. And race quickly became a part of the public conversation around around the case pretty much as soon as it happened. People were kind of bringing race into it, and unfortunately, American society in the modern day, it's very hard to even process certain issues without viewing it through the lens of race and discrimination and. I do feel like this case, unfortunately, will and already has been politicized, and it's probably going to be hard for even the jury to kind of set aside some of those implications.
All right, so Mark, first of all, the idea of race, I mean, you lived it with Zimmerman in a big way. There's so many people who believe that that's why Zimmerman wound up beating that case. But what do you see here? What are your questions? What will matter?
Oh, no, it's definitely a consideration. It always is, whether it's a sort of obvious what we're doing or the implicit one, because we all carry these implicit biases with us that perceive or impact how we perceive an event. Now, what's really it's going to come down to, and I disagree with the guy who said this is not a self-defense case yesterday, I think he said it. This is definitely a self-defense case because it always is one until you look at the facts of the case and compare the two. You have to compare who was the initial aggressor. Was it an aggressive act for him to go up and say, get away from the tent? Did he do more than that? My understanding was maybe he touched him and put hands on him. Granted, that makes the decedent in this case maybe the initial aggressor. But you really still then have to look at whether or not Carmelo Anthony responded with appropriate force, he used a deadly weapon, and whether or not he was in imminent fear of great bodily injury. That's the standard in Texas and most every state, to determine whether or not his actions, the way he perceived him, the way Carmelo Anthony perceived him when he took out that knife and stabbed him. The good part is if the decedent was the aggressor initially. The bad part for Carmelo, if in fact it's true that he sort of said, touch me and you'll see, because that's that aggression, that's that predisposition towards violence that doesn't have a place in a true self-defense case.
So again, it kind of hints at like the Chud the Builder situation, where it's a case of, if he said, touch me and you'll see, I don't know, man, because it's like, if it's someone said, I honestly might say that to somebody. I'm not going to stab anyone, but you might get pepper sprayed real quick. Like, if I'm like, bro, if someone's threatening me and is about to grab hold of me, and I'm in the free world, you know, I'm not in an airport, I'm not in a situation where, you know, physical violence is kind of seen differently, I'm not in a courthouse, I might say, yeah, touch me and you'll see, man. And then if you touch me, you're getting sprayed in the face with some pretty strong stuff. That doesn't really negate my ability to defend myself. If anything, I gave you a fair warning. It sounds like he gave him a fair warning. Touch me and you'll see. I don't think he's not saying, like, not saying if you don't leave, I'm going to kill you. He's saying, don't touch me. Touch me and you'll see what happens, right? I'll defend myself. You can't bully me. But I would like to know the facts of the case. I would like to know more facts of the case, okay? But it is really interesting. So what I would say, okay, is there's been kind of more analysis. Okay, apparently local media actually viewed surveillance footage of the stabbing, and though it wasn't released publicly due to student privacy and security concerns, it seems like members of the media were actually treated to the footage so that they could maybe simmer down some of the rhetoric they were putting out there.
See about 30 to 40 people around the field. It's a track meet that morning, so they're preparing for this track meet. The incident in question happens at 9:44 a.m. It's really calm up until that point, and then chaos ensues, and you can't really make up anybody. You can't make out individuals. You can see people and colors and what they're wearing, but you can't make out identities. But again, at 9:44, chaos ensues. What I did not see was any obvious physical altercation leading up to the stabbing. Now, I went inside the stadium earlier this morning to try and give our viewers a better vantage point of where this all happened. Take a look. Across the field, you can see where the press box cameras captured everything. We're on the 45-yard line here. This is where it ultimately happened. There's a tent right up here, the kind of the sports tent where everybody was huddled at 9:44. Whatever went down happened right here. Everybody kind of took off. Now, according to police reports, Austin Metcalf and Carmelo Anthony were here at this track meet. Austin Metcalf told Anthony he needed to move out from under their team's tent when Anthony grabbed his bag, reached.
For the record, yeah, I could be wrong, but I thought that I heard when I was researching this case that it might have been raining at the time. So, you know, the extra dimension of it is that he was maybe grabbing some shelter underneath this tent real quick, and then he was told to leave, told to go stand out in the rain. Now, they're saying it's because he was from the wrong school. I'm not trying to infer too much, but like, you know, were there other reasons? Were there any biases that caused Austin Metcalf to be aggressive from the get-go? You know, surely as a, you know, maybe you're on a different team, but like if the kid wants to catch some shelter for a minute, like, is that, you know, is it so bad? Like, is it so bad that he's just catching a little shelter under your tent? I don't know.
And he grabbed his bag, reached inside, and told Austin, quote, touch me and see what happens. The police report states Metcalf grabbed Anthony to tell him to move. Anthony pulled out a knife, stabbed Metcalf once in the chest and ran. Metcalf died in his twin brother's arms.
Why would you grab someone to tell them to move? That's the part I don't understand. Like, he's saying, touch me and we'll see. And then you're saying you grab them, and you're saying, move. That's a bit strange.
Metcalf died in his twin brother's arms. And now, as of last week, Carmelo Anthony indicted for first-degree murder. Nicole?
So the circumstances around this are kind of very, very, very dubious. So towards the end of 2025, controversy grew after people basically learned that Anthony had actually enrolled in online classes at college. He was still trying to get his education while awaiting trial for murder. Carmelo Anthony, currently on house arrest for fatally stabbing Austin Metcalf, has reportedly enrolled in college classes. This comes after Frisco ISD granted him his high school diploma, even though the school was not obliged to do so after his expulsion, and the decision was greatly opposed. I mean, he hasn't been convicted yet, right? So you can't deprive him of his diploma if he hasn't yet actually been convicted, and even expelling him before he's actually been convicted is a little bit crazy. He was saying criminal justice major. You have a convicted felon in the White House. Quit trying to lecture people on justice and morals. This looks like rage bait. He stabbed and killed a high schooler who didn't have a weapon, and he gets to sleep on his bed tonight. I lived where this happened. I'm repulsed. That's what paying bail is. For every case like this where someone's obviously guilty, there's dozens where an innocent person is accused. So bail shouldn't be available if it's murder or R word. Most rapists don't get R word. I shouldn't have said that. Don't get bail. most R words don't get bail. That's what I should have said. Anyway, it's easy to forget that 2 lives are forever taken away on that tragic day. 2 families will never be the same. I don't think that this is the way to go about things, by discussing race and how the other side should take accountability. This is why we have the judicial system. I just hope that it will be a fair trial. Okay, why wouldn't he attend college if his life goal is to become an educated adult? Except he's a murderer that deserves to rot in jail. We got to see what the jury says, saying he needs to be behind bars for the rest of his life. Realistically, he won't be spending his entire life in prison. It's probably not a bad thing to try and start with rehabilitation or whatever to prevent this happening. Again, people saying he's going to get life, but we don't know. So shout out to Bruce Rivers, the criminal lawyer reacts on YouTube. He gave some very interesting analysis of the case and some of the merits of a potential self-defense argument.
You can't start the fight. You can't start a fight and then avail yourself of self-defense. So if I punch you in the face, I lose my right to claim self-defense. Number 2, the force that you use has to be proportional. You can't use a firearm when somebody is like hitting you with a feather. I mean, obviously that's an extreme example, but you get what I mean. And then you also, if you're able, and the defense has to put forth some showing of it. So it's initially the defense's burden to put up some evidence of self-defense. But once the judge grants that self-defense instruction, guess whose burden it is to prove that it wasn't? It is the state's job to prove, and their burden to prove that it wasn't self-defense.
Here's what happened according to witnesses and the police report. Metcalf got into an argument with the suspect, 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony, over a seating dispute in the bleachers. Metcalf told Anthony he needed to move from under the team's tent.
He always was one to step up and be the person that would do the right thing. And he was doing the right thing by saying to this gentleman that you're not supposed to be in this tent. This is because they have personal items there.
Anthony opened his bag and reached inside and said to Metcalf, "Touch me and see what happens." Metcalf reportedly...
That's taunting. It's not starting the fight necessarily, but that's taunting.
Grabbed Anthony and told him to move.
He knew he wasn't supposed to be there. He was just a tragedy what happened.
That's when Anthony pulled out a black knife and stabbed Metcalf in the chest once before running away. When Anthony was taken into custody by a...
Why wouldn't you just fucking move? Honestly. Why would you... It seems to me at first blush, now I don't know this, I don't know, I haven't read all the police reports, I haven't read all the, I don't have any of the discovery, but it seems to me if it happened anywhere close to that they're not going to get a self-defense instruction.
So I've got a little breakdown here from Reddit that kind of gives a little bit more context. As I was saying, I thought I'd heard it was raining. So this is kind of a breakdown here that somebody's put on the Red Scare podcast subreddit. So trial starts tomorrow morning, and I've got to be completely honest, these first-degree murder charges completely baffle me. The kid messed up, and he probably deserves some time, but a life sentence. He took refuge under the other school's tent before a track meet because it was raining. Austin Metcalf, who he didn't know, confronts him and orders him to leave. Anthony refuses. Metcalf gets in his face, squares up. Anthony warns not to touch him, sticks his hand in his bag. Austin shoves Carmelo, or we heard it, he grabbed him, and so he stabs him once in the chest. He flees to the parking lot, gives himself up to police as soon as they approach. He immediately breaks down in tears, desperately asking if Metcalf was okay. I'm sorry, but I don't think he deserves to rot in a prison cell for the rest of his life. The way this case has been talked about online is disgusting and unambiguously racist. Stabbing people to death is a bad thing. It would be one thing if he punched him and it ended up killing him, but a certain kind of person carries a knife and stabs somebody. Saying exactly, stand your ground laws are stupid. So look, let's just, people are going to be going for the racial stuff in the comments, right? Because white people abuse them all the time, but you only have a problem with a black kid using it. Sounding like a lot of nonsense with OJ sounding off like the nonsense with OJ. You care more about his skin color than his possible actions. If there's justice and fairness in the world, it will end the same as OJ. But I'm not stupid enough to assume everything will happen that way. I just want justice because it's fair. People saying he's a Fed. I think a lot more kids carry around pocket knives than you'd think. He wasn't walking around with a machete. Again, he made a bad decision, but I guess maybe Texas law might be different. But I work as an assistant to a criminal defense attorney, and I don't see this as a first-degree situation. Even if I happen to be carrying my pocket knife on me, I don't think it would cross my mind to use it in this situation. I'd say, oh, am I in the wrong tent? F, my bad, bro. I'll leave and then roll my eyes and think, what a douchebag as I walk away. You actually don't need to kill people for disrespecting or touching you. The very purpose of the state is to squash honor culture bullshit like this. I'm just not sure I agree with that, because I feel like if you explain, like, he should have just done this, that, and the other, but it's like he was a young black kid. He was just catching some cover from the rain. An aggressive white kid comes up to him and says, you need to get out here. You need to go and stand in the rain. He's like, I don't want, I'm staying, right? An official school, this wasn't an official school security guard. I don't know if it was official school policy that someone from the other school on a multi-school track meetup couldn't take refuge under a tent to avoid the rain. And then he's talking about he grabbed a kid. I don't think anybody working in an official capacity of the school would authorize grabbing and physically removing somebody from a team's track tent, right? So then you get into, okay, well, this kid was committing an aggressive act of violence by grabbing. It's not really worthy, right? It's like, oh, this person in this comment says, why didn't he just say, fuck, my bad, bro? Well, why didn't the victim say, oh, you're not from this school, but you just don't want to get covered in rain? My bad, bro. Just chill. Yeah, just chill for 5 minutes, and then, you know what I mean? You can't stay here forever, right? And then roll my eyes and think, what a douchebag, as I walk away. Well, why didn't he just say, oh, it's cool, you can, yeah, I wouldn't want to get wet either, like, yeah, okay, just chill under the tent for 5 minutes, but you got to go find your own tent in a minute, like maybe when it clears up. I don't know, right? People saying they carry their knife everywhere. The self-defense argument is pretty bad. He had every chance to withdraw himself from the situation, and getting pushed doesn't mean you can stab someone in the chest. Well, other reporting says grabbed. If he was grabbed hold of and he was basically being grabbed hold of and he wasn't being allowed to leave. I don't know. Seems like Texas law on premeditation is also broad. Doesn't sound like it was premeditated to me. The concept of premeditation doesn't really exist in Texas' scheme of criminalizing killings. If you intentionally or knowingly kill someone or intentionally cause serious bodily injury that leads to death, that's murder. Murder, intentionally knowing or killing someone, and certain aggravating factors like the victim being a child under the age of 10 or a police officer, or it happened during a robbery, that will be capital murder. Recklessly causing someone's death is manslaughter. Those are the only three possibilities for charging someone with a killing in Texas. All that matters is the defendant's state of mind, intentional, knowing, or reckless at the time of killing. However, if a defendant is found guilty of murder in the punishment phase of the trial, they can prove they were acting under a sudden passion to get it dropped to a manslaughter. So you shouldn't be stabbing people. Stabbing is bad. Also, what do you mean probably deserves some time? He killed someone, which is bad. There's no crime called stabbing someone. The circumstances change the charge. He's facing the same charges as Ted Bundy. Okay, they're saying it will be lowered, potentially. Okay, deeply sad 2 young men's lives were destroyed by this incident. That said, if he committed murder, if he was white, no one would even think twice about this. I'm not gonna lie, I do feel that, and I'm white, but like I've covered a lot of injustices, and I'm not sure he would. I'm not sure if Austin Metcalf will be getting charged, but I don't know, right? And I'm not saying that that's good. I'm not saying that's the way it should be, right? Maybe if it was the shoe was on the other foot, Austin Metcalf be getting off. Really should have been charged. Says they want the black kid to get away with murdering someone because George Floyd and Donald Trump bad. All right. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting, crazy perspective on here, but I want to just touch back in with Bruce Rivers again, because there was more analysis from his video that I wanted to touch on. He basically would explain that when all this case comes down to is whether or not Carmelo's actions were reasonable. And he basically explained there are reasons, Carmelo might have had a knife on him for a good reason. He might not have intended to kill someone.
But it's all going to come down to the one word. All these cases, every one of these cases, no matter whether it's Diddy or whatever, they usually come down to one word or one simple idea. And this simple idea is the word reasonable. Whether what Carmelo Anthony did was reasonable under the circumstances. We don't have all the facts here. We don't have the police reports. We don't have the witness interviews. We don't have a statement from Carmelo Anthony, except for he took responsibility for this right away. And he said right away, I was acting in self-defense. You know, how many people carry knives with them? Guess what? My daughter, when she was in, and I didn't know this till after the fact, but my daughter, when she was in driver's ed, she went and did a night driving thing, and she met this guy. I dropped her off, and this guy, you know, had his own car, and it was in a parking lot of a nightclub. All right. And so she does her driving lessons. 2 hours later, I'm waiting there, and I pick her up, and we go home. She gets in my car, and she pulls a fucking knife out of her belt. I'm like, what the hell are you doing with that? She says, I don't know this guy. You know? And that's a young lady at like 15, 16 years old. So
here's the thing, right? If Bruce Rivers' daughter went for a driving test, went for a driving lesson with a guy she didn't know, a night driving lesson, and he grabbed her, which is what they're saying that Carmelo Anthony was grabbed. If this guy grabbed the woman in the car on an all-night driving lesson, doesn't know him, I think we'd all be saying, yeah, she pulled out the knife, stabbed him in the chest. If she was grabbed it, I think we'd be saying, why'd she have a knife? Well, you don't know what's going to happen out there in the world, right? Or why did she act so violent? She was grabbed. She was grabbed. I think any father, anybody that's got a sister, a niece, a daughter, as a man, they look at that situation, no race involved. Let's say Bruce Rivers was black and his daughter was black, and she doing a night lesson, right, with a driving instructor who's white, and he grabs her. Be a different story, right? So I think this case is very, very interesting. So the last thing I'm going to show you is just the update for the case. Basically, they're trying to sell me some crazy expensive watches for some reason, bro. I'm not on that level. How do I get rid of this? I'm gonna hide this. All right. So basically, okay, they're now revealing his defense strategy. Obviously, he got his bail. Okay, jury selection has begun in Collin County, and it's going to be going to trial. Okay, so this basically is a Daily Mail article that's actually going to break down his potential defense. So it says Carmelo Anthony's likely defense strategy revealed as teen stands trial for murder of Austin Metcalf, 17, in a killing that shocked America. So attorneys for the Texas teenager Carmelo Anthony, fatally accused of stabbing 17-year-old Austin Metcalf at a track meet, are likely to focus on the size difference between the two kids during the murder trial. So Carmelo Anthony, 19, not really a kid, really, is he? Actually, no, they were 17 at the time of the incident, so that's fair. He was charged with murder after Austin Metcalf bled out in his twin brother's arms during a track meet at the Coy Kendall Stadium in Frisco on April the 2nd, 2025. Anthony and Metcalf were both 17. They got in a confrontation during a rain delay at the sporting event after Metcalf called out Anthony for standing under the tent that didn't belong to his school. Here's the thing, right? Like, why can't he just catch some shade under this tent? What's the issue? What's the issue? Like, why did he choose to confront him? Is it a problem? Is it causing your team to lose if he's just staying dry under a little rain break? Like, he just happened to be near that tent. So they exchanged words before Anthony allegedly pulled out a knife and stabbed Metcalf. He fled the scene but was soon tracked down and arrested. That's interesting because that contradicts other stuff that I read that he actually was like, spoke to police and admitted it straight away. Anthony's family launched a fundraiser to aid his legal battle. He's pled not guilty. He's claiming self-defense. So the team basically are planning to zone in on their client and Metcalf's contrasting sizes as a way to prove self-defense. Anthony is 5'9", weighs 130 pounds. Metcalf was 6 foot tall and weighed between 200 and 225 pounds. Wow. He's a big kid. All right. There he is. So it says, they said the self-defense argument could stand up in this case, even though Anthony was allegedly the only one with a weapon. The question is, what's a weapon? Case law said a shoe can be a weapon, your hands can be a weapon, a bottle can be a weapon. He also noted that self-defense could be a valid argument if the victim who was killed was approaching the other in an aggressive manner or put hands on him. Sounds like that's what happened. He grabbed him. And I think grabbing him, pushing him, I would say pushing him is the least bad. Grabbing him in the middle and then punching him, striking him would be the worst. Arguably, you could say grabbing is actually worse than striking him because you're depriving somebody of their liberty. When I give you the example of a young woman having a driving lesson, the idea that the male driving instructor that's bigger than the woman grabbed her, that actually is really scary because it's like you're depriving somebody of their liberty. You're depriving somebody of their ability to walk away. And then when you talk about the fact that this kid was massive and he weighed a lot and he was way taller, Could Carmelo Anthony could have reasonably even expected to get away from being grabbed without the use of a weapon? It sounds like he was at a massive physical disadvantage, right? So he noted self-defense could be a valid argument if the victim who was killed was approaching the other in an aggressive manner or put hands on them, which is allegedly what happened. According to an arrest report, witnesses said when Anthony sat under the tent belonging to Metcalf's team, Metcalf told Anthony move, and Anthony said, touch me and see what happens. Metcalf then touched him as Anthony said, punch me and see what happens. If I reasonably believe this guy... See, here's the thing, right? If he said, touch me and see what happens, and he touched him, and he said, all right, punch me and see what happens. It's like, he ain't even really being the aggressor. He pump faking it, and it's not working, and he pump faking it again. He's like, bro, I didn't even want to do this. I tried to warn you. You're massive. And now he's saying he grabbed me. All right? If I reasonably believe this guy's about to attack me, and I know if I'm attacked by him, he could kill or seriously injure me, then I'm justified in using whatever defense mechanism I need to preserve my life. Texas is a stand-your-ground state, which means a person can legally use deadly force if they believe they're in danger. But if the jury finds that Anthony somehow provoked Metcalf, that law might not be able to be... It doesn't sound like he provoked him. That's the tent, and it's raining. What's so exclusive about this tent? He's just trying to get some shade under the... trying to get some dryness under the tent, right? So, you know, rest in peace to the victim, but I'm from what I've read, I'm thinking he's going to beat this on self-defense. So jury selection begun Monday morning. 24 people were waiting outside the courtroom. Police officer tracked down Anthony, took him into custody last year. He told an arrested officer, I'm not alleged, I did it. He made the statement as the cop told others Anthony was being arrested for the deadly knife attack. He put his hands on me, I told him not to. Anthony told cops as he was handcuffed at the stadium. Metcalf bled out in his twin brother Hunter's arms after he was stabbed. More than a year on from his sibling's death, Hunter walked across the stage and accepted his and his brother's high school diplomas during a graduation ceremony. Here's the thing, and I don't mean to disrespect anyone, but this is why you keep your hands to yourself, bro. It's why you keep your hands to yourself. I don't grab nobody. I don't slap nobody. I'm not out here slapping nobody. I'm not out here antagonizing people, slapping, grabbing men or women. Not grabbing anyone, all right? And if I did, I got to take what comes with it. He played with the wrong person. He shouldn't have been playing with him. Shouldn't have been playing with anybody. If he didn't like that he was under the tent, he should have gone and got the principal. Go speak to go tell the principal, hey, you need to sort this out. Anyway, despite teenage boys not knowing each other, their deadly encounter sparked racial tensions and generated enormous interest across the country. The case has been a lightning rod for political debate, with supporters rallying behind Anthony, saying he's been treated unfairly due to his race. So the Metcalf family have been victims of swatting multiple times since the stabbing, and his image has been used by far-right figures like Jake Lang, despite condemnation from Metcalf's father, Jeff, who said he was creating more race divide than bridging the gap. Just weeks before before the trial, civil rights activist Dominique Alexander stepped in to advocate for a fair trial. So look, in my opinion, all right, I'm not trying to stoke no racial tensions myself, but in my opinion, it sounds like Austin Metcalf made a big mistake, and he grabbed hold of somebody that he shouldn't have grabbed hold of somebody. He was warned. I think the context of him being much bigger, more powerful, if we're seeing in some places shoved, some places grabbed, I think grabbed, if he was grabbed and he was much bigger and he was warned and he said, don't touch me, and he touched him once and he said, don't touch me again and you're going to find out. I think he was warned very, very fairly and very reasonably. Obviously, he didn't think, he was thinking, I'm going to grab this weak little kid and get him out of here. This is easy. And he's not realizing that he had an equalizer on him. Unfortunately, I think he'll beat this. I could be wrong. Based on the information that I've seen, I think he's within his rights. Some giant guy comes up to me and says, and I'm somewhere where I feel like I got a right to be. You know, he wasn't in a restricted zone of the airport. He was under a makeshift tent, right? I don't know if Carmelo Anthony had a right to be there, but he certainly wasn't deserving of getting grabbed. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. You could tell me I'm completely wrong. All right, there could be more to this. If more evidence comes out, I'll let you guys know. But that's my thoughts on this situation. It is very sad. Rest in peace to the victim. Have the utmost sympathy for them and the family. But this situation is definitely not black and white. Excuse the pun. Okay, so I'll keep you guys informed. Jury selection has begun. I think we'll be getting a result and a verdict. You know, give it a few months. I don't know how long this trial is going to go, but we will see. Okay, rest in peace to the person that lost their life. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace.